Before the story begins, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like. This will help the channel grow. The Case of the Vanished Beekeeper, a detective mystery story. Detective Rowan Hale had seen his share of strange disappearances, but nothing prepared him for this. 22 beehives, each weighing over 100 pounds, gone overnight from the rural town of Maplethorne. And not just the hives. The beekeeper himself, Silas Grigg, a man known for honey so good tourists joked it must be illegal. Rowan arrived at the apiary at sunrise. The grass was damp and golden, the air sweet with traces of honey that lingered stubbornly, as if refusing to admit anything was wrong. But the place felt hollow. Too quiet. A bee farm wasn't supposed to sound like this. Only wind, no buzzing. The ground showed tire tracks, but they were strange, curved in looping arcs rather than straight lines, as though whoever drove the vehicle wasn't used to steering it. Nearby, Rowan spotted a torn scrap of cloth caught on a fence, bright red, silky, theatrical looking. Not something Silas would ever wear. Inside Silas's tiny cabin, the detective found the beekeeper's journal open on the table. The last entry read, "Tomorrow night they come for the queen." But there was no queen bee anywhere, just an overturned smoker, a broken jar of honey, and a faint aroma of lavender, unusual for the farm. Lavender was the calling card of only one group in Maplethorne, the Floral Thieves, a bizarre trio known for stealing rare plants for black market botanical collectors. If they were involved, Rowan knew the case was about to get ridiculous. He exhaled slowly and stepped outside. A single bee crawled across his sleeve, alive, confused, lost. Something terrible, or incredibly stupid, had happened here. Rowan followed the scent of lavender to the edge of Haywick Forest, a place dense enough to swallow a person whole if they weren't careful. And yet, the path into the woods was strangely obvious. Scattered bits of honeycomb, sticky footprints, and tire marks that curved like someone performing circus tricks with a truck. A few minutes in, he stumbled upon a bright red scarf hanging from a branch, fluttering dramatically in the breeze. Rowan sighed. That confirmed it. No one else except the Floral Thieves left theatrical breadcrumbs. But the deeper he went, the weirder things became. Hanging from the branches were small metal contraptions that buzzed softly, tiny drones, painted like flowers. They weren't surveillance drones. They were pollination bots, outdated prototypes that Silas Grigg had once criticized in a newspaper interview. So why were the thieves using them? Further ahead, Rowan found a campsite, empty, but hurriedly abandoned. There were lavender sachets, partially eaten pastries, a map of the town with the apiary circled, and a massive cooler with sticky honey fingerprints all over it. But the most worrying thing was a small, open notebook filled with sketches of Silas's rare Midnight Queen, a genetically unusual bee that glowed faintly under ultraviolet light. The thieves had underlined it multiple times and scribbled one word: auction. Rowan closed the notebook. This wasn't a simple theft anymore. It was a countdown. Rowan's search led him to an underground farmer's market known only to collectors, smugglers, and eccentric gardeners. It operated inside an abandoned grain silo, lit by fairy lights and black market ambition. Vendors sold illegal seeds, bioluminescent mushrooms, carnivorous flowers in jars. But there, in the center, under a tarp-covered table, Rowan spotted a cooler identical to the one from the thieves' camp. He approached the masked seller, a woman in floral gloves, and flashed his badge. She froze. Rowan lifted the tarp and saw them. 3 stolen beehives, alive, humming faintly. But before he could act, the lights went out. Total darkness. A rush of air. Shouting. Then footsteps pounding up the silo's metal stairs. When emergency lights flickered back on, the hives were gone, again. But the woman in floral gloves had left something behind. A torn ticket for the moonlit masquerade, a charity ball held once a year at the extravagant Whitehill greenhouse. If the thieves were going to sell a glowing queen bee to a wealthy buyer, that was the perfect place. Rowan clenched his jaw. He hated masquerades. The Whitehill greenhouse looked like a palace spun from glass. Inside, masked guests danced beneath chandeliers shaped like lilies. Rowan walked through the crowd disguised with a simple black mask, trying to blend in, which was difficult since he looked like the only person not enjoying himself. Lavender perfume drifted through the air. He followed it. Behind a curtain of orchids, Rowan found the floral thieves, 2 men and 1 woman dressed in matching red scarves. They were pushing a cart with a covered cage, whispering excitedly about final bids and the queen. Rowan stepped forward, gun drawn. Party's over. But the thieves were performers, flexible, acrobatic, annoyingly quick. They scattered, leaping over tables, swinging from rails, kicking over trays of champagne. One thief hurled handfuls of pollen into Rowan's face, making him sneeze violently. The chase barreled into the greenhouse's back corridor. But there, in a storage room, the detective found something unexpected. Silas Grigg, tied to a chair but unharmed, rolling his eyes. "About time you showed up," he said. "I've been listening to them argue for an hour about whether bees need music to stay calm." Mara cut the ropes, just as the thieves burst in for a final desperate attack. The fight inside the greenhouse spiraled into chaos. Rowan dodged a swinging rake, ducked under a falling pot of soil, and blocked a punch with a tray of seedlings. Silas, though tied for hours, managed to kick one thief in the shin. But the woman in red, the ringleader, grabbed the cage and sprinted toward the rooftop exit. Rowan followed her up spiraling metal stairs until they reached the greenhouse dome. Moonlight washed over them. The cage glowed faintly, the midnight queen buzzing inside, blue-tinted and furious. The woman hissed. "You have no idea what collectors will pay for a bee like this," Rowan replied. "And you have no idea how much paperwork I hate." A brief fight followed, one that involved slipping on wet glass panels, nearly falling off a 40-foot drop, and Rowan using a watering wand as a makeshift baton. Eventually, the thief lost her grip. Rowan caught the cage at the last second before it could shatter. The woman tried to run. Rowan tackled her gently, mindful of the bees. By the time backup arrived, the thieves were arrested, and Silas was safe. The next morning, Rowan escorted Silas and the rescued hives back to the apiary. As dawn warmed the fields, the bees slowly emerged, buzzing weakly but alive. Silas wept quietly, both from relief and from the fact that his rare queen had survived without stinging anyone to death. Rowan helped set the hives back into place. For a moment, the orchard-like calm settled again, filling the air with a soft hum that had been missing. Silas looked at the detective. "I owe you a lifetime of honey," Rowan smirked. "Just don't make me chase bees again." What Rowan didn't tell him was this. The Midnight Queen had left a strange shimmering residue on his gloves, the same kind Silas had once described as a sign she chooses her allies. Rowan wasn't sure if bees could choose allies. But as the sun rose over Maplethorn, the detective allowed himself to hope the next case wouldn't involve running across a glass rooftop chasing criminals armed with pollen. He wasn't optimistic.